say that our business is stronger than it has ever been.
The success of growth and where I see companies growing consistently really is your people.
I mean, the story is not, does it make power? Because they all make power. The story is, what does it power?
This is What Solar Installers Need to Know with your host, Hervé Billier and Joe Marhamati.
Hi there, it's Hervé and Joe with What Solar Installers Need to Know, where we interview solar CEOs and experts on how they run their business on the solar coaster. We ask their private revenue numbers, we give actionable advice, and learn about trade secrets so you can run and grow your solar business. Joe and I built a solar company from 0 to 12 million in sales and got successfully acquired. If you'd like to do the same or do better, go to sungrow.com/blog to get actionable behind-the-scenes lessons on running and growing your solar business. And now, without further ado, let's jump right into the next episode. Welcome to What Solar Installers Need to Know, where we learn from other solar installers and experts about what works and what doesn't. We help you run your solar business, innovate, and discuss the future of solar. Welcome, Mike, to the podcast.
Hey, everybody, good to see you.
So, Mike, you had a full career before getting into solar. You worked at Harley-Davidson, you worked at Mazda, and now you're the CIO at Arch Solar, which is part of Amicus. Arch Solar, if you correct me, is 18 million in revenue, both resi and commercial together. So around 170 employees total, 30 people in resi, 40 in commercial, and around 90 in utility space. You also have around 10 people focusing on O&M. You operate mainly in Wisconsin. Utility branch is also operating in Illinois. You have around 15 to 18 installs a month. 25% of your resi have a battery attachment, and you have 3 crews residential, 3 crews CNI, and including your utility scale, you do 100% of the labor in-house.
That's a very nice bio, Hervé. Thank you.
So let's start with 2 questions. What does CIO stands for, and what is Amicus?
You want CIO first? So CIO is my self-proclaimed title. I'm the Chief Instigation Officer. I started out with Ed 10 years ago as a energy consultant, and then I took over all of our marketing, and then I was very involved in operations, and I just decided that, you know what, I have to continue to instigate in order to grow this company. So one instigation after another, getting our fleet number for our vehicles so that we can save $12,000 on a van, et cetera, et cetera. I just became an instigator. And we all agreed a couple of years ago, that's a great title for me. So it stuck. Yeah.
All right. And what is Amicus?
So Amicus is a blessing to us. Amicus is a cooperative of solar contractors around the country. We have some Canadians as well. And then we have Hector over in Puerto Rico of high value, conscientious, honest contractors. And then we're also a purchasing co-op. So we aggregate and try to help everybody get a better price by aggregating our purchases. But what it really is a brotherhood and sisterhood of really good people in this industry, which is still not a very well-known industry. I mean, when you talk to people, I'm in solar, maybe 1 in 500 people you can relate to. Most people talk to me, they're like, solar, what's that? But Amicus is a leader in that. They've been engaged in this process since 2012, and we're really proud to be members of. We were member number 34, and that was quite a while ago. But yeah, Amicus is a resource for all of its members to be able to share information, share practices, best practices, policy, HR, personnel, wages, all of that stuff. And yeah, we're really, really grateful for our membership in Amicus, and we're also members of Amicus O&M, which has also been a benefit to us. I would highly recommend, if you're not an Amicus member and you want to be, you can try to be, and we would welcome good members. I mean, as well as I do, everybody, there's not a bad person in the group, right? It's really been a neat thing. It's a peer group as well, right? So it's national. So, I can call Lars out in California. I can call James in Vermont. I can call Chris in Tennessee. I can call Barry in Florida. If they've been through something I haven't been through, they can give me all the tips and the watch outs and the stuff that makes us, very successful.
Get together. I was sitting next to you.
Yeah.
And it's wonderful just stepping in a room with a lot of other people that have to make similar decisions as you do. So they feel the pain, they've walked the talk, they know what you're talking about.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, about the walk, let's speak about the vision, long-term vision of the company. You have something of a BHAG, a big audacious goal.
Yeah, big, hairy, audacious goal. So we have an annual meeting in our owner, Ed, lives on a farm, and he's got an 18-acre farm with a really nice barn that he's fixed up. And so we take all of our staff out there and we go sit in this barn for a day, and we have our leadership summit. And at the end of the day, Ed gets his opportunity to speak. And so 2 years ago, I said, "Okay, Ed, what are you going to talk about?" He goes, I only got one slide. So he gets in the front of the room with 25 people and he puts up a slide and it says 100 million by 2033. So that's his vision for his company to grow to that size of a revenue company. There are some really neat metrics that go along with that. And friends like Kevin Schulte in New York have shared stuff with us that have given us a basis for this foundation. But there's a human capital component to 100 million. You just don't get $100 million job with 10 people are going to pull it off, right? So we have planned, and we're strategizing, and we're hiring the right people, especially in the human capital side, to reach about 350,000 in our total human capital population. So, and our goal is to provide good paying, safe jobs where people are proud of doing what they're doing. And we've got one of the things that's really neat about, and I'm going off on a tangent here, but one of the things that's really neat about our staff, I think, is that we have about 30 women in different areas of leadership and construction.
Or how difficult is it to attract the women?
So it's really interesting. So in the admin side of things, we had a couple of ladies. And then in the sales side, I had a lady, and she's now our director of sales in Resi. And I had a number of people, over the course of the years, we've had a number of people that said, "Hey, I'm taking the MREA course. I'm taking the NABCEP course. I'm going to tech school. Would you guys consider hiring me?" And we were like, "Sure. I mean, why not?" Right. And so we have one person that I'm super proud of. She's the only female NABCEP certified installer in the country. She's a journeyman electrician, and she's a NABCEP trainer. And she works in the field for us. And she runs her own crew on the AC side. And Jennifer Conradi, she's just wonderful. And she might talk to somebody. In fact, she goes out to she does outreach seminars for us as well. And so from that, we have another person named Samantha, who's running, what is she running now? Residential operations, I think. So yeah, it's wonderful. And we have some people in the field. We have one gal's name is Samantha. She's from Texas. She's working in Arch Electric as an electrician, and her husband is also working next to her. So the two of them get to work together every day out in the field doing electrical work. It's really kind of fun watching them. Yeah.
Let's talk for a moment about difficult moments in the company. You explained that you have several difficulties throughout the years, but let's speak about like one of those hard moments that you guys had to push through.
Yeah. So I joined in August of 2015, and at that time I was the only I was the only revenue generator. There was nobody else generating revenue, so it was up to me. And at that time, I mean, I would be driving in my car with my laptop in my passenger seat, entering in data into our software program on my way to an appointment to present the proposal. And in fact, I would get to the customer's house sometimes, and I would use their printer because I didn't have a portable printer. We couldn't afford it. And that was when we were about 9 people. And so it was just an 80-hour-a-week struggle. We just kept working and struggling. And we were able to kind of move along pretty good. And, we went from like 9 people to 15 people to 20 people. And then an opportunity came along that I personally said we have to walk away from. And Ed said, "Oh no, we're going to do this," and that would be a 1.8 megawatt roof job, 2 roofs actually, on the south side of Milwaukee for IKEA, and in the wintertime. And I said to Ed, I said, "How are we going to do this?" He goes, "Oh, don't worry, it's just another cliff. In other words, and hope you land." And we ended up having all hands on deck for that job. We even had Resi people up there at the time. I don't know if we had any gals up there at the time, But we, in the wintertime, in 24 inches of snow, 28 inches of snow one day, we were able to pull that thing off on time, within budget, and we actually got a safety award and a construction award from REC Solar for it. So once we got over that hurdle, it was kind of like, hey, looks like we can probably do anything. And then anything came along, and that is the utility business. We had a developer approach us and say, you guys can build this for us, or you guys are so good, you can just do this on your own if you figure it out. Well, figuring it out probably took about $5 million worth of tuition, maybe more. And that was several years ago. And now we're building, I think this year we're building 45 or 50 megawatts in utility. And it's a completely vertical, seamless operation. We've got a general manager running the business, and he and his staff and their accounting and everything, they're all independent. They just do their thing.
So if it wasn't for that one restaking project, you wouldn't be where you are today.
I mean, no, not where we are today. Where we are maybe 3 years ago, we would have been, but no, not today. Today we are now at the luxury of having to choose which developers we work for. And we don't respond to every RFP that comes through because we don't need to. And so it's kind of a luxury. And I'm not saying that, we're so good that nobody can touch us. It's just that we have found some very good business partners, and they have promised us, and we've been working together with them for years, a good future. So we are now talking about projects in 2028 in excess of what we're going to do this year for utility.
What makes a good business partner? If you can select them, what are some things you guys look for?
Basically, if their word is their bond. I have an old saying from my career: no assholes and no bullshit. And when I'm dealing with these guys and I'm getting the straight scoop, and even when we have problems, if they're being straight with us and we work the problems out, we love it. And I'm not involved in that business anymore. Dan Steiner takes care of all that. And that's totally a utility thing. So about 3 years ago, we restructured the company. It used to be one company called Arch Electric. And it occurred to me and our CFO that this thing is going to get out of control if we don't kind of put some parameters. I don't want to say silos. I don't like the word division. So we came up with a business unit plan where we would establish Resi and put them on their own with their own crews, their own general manager, their own accounting, their own line of credit, their own insurance. And then we did the same thing for C&I. We did the same thing for O&M, even though O&M is very small. And then we did the same thing for Arch Electric. And we found a very strong individual that came to us from the industry to run Arch Electric. So that business unit is essentially carrying, a lot of they're making the most money, right? Because the margins and the volume. But they help support the rest of the companies from the standpoint of management fees. We have management fees and overhead. And so it works really good in so far as not having to wonder who's going to fix and who's going to do what. When a residential job has to get done, it's the residential people, and they handle everything that has to do with it: procurement, paying the bill, permitting, all that stuff. If it's a commercial job, residential people don't touch it. It all goes to the commercial people. And then O&M is independent. Every business unit has its own O&M. So they call it service quality maintenance. So Resi has 1, 2, 3 SQM people. C&I has 2 SQMs. And then our O&M services both Arch Electric in the utility field and then all of our other developer partners.
Do you have something in common? All the vehicles, are they purchased in common, or do the departments charge each other and so on?
So we have 4 business units, but we have 8 companies. And so we established a company called Arch Leasing. And so Arch Leasing buys all the equipment, even the post pounders and the trenchers and the bobcats and everything. Arch Leasing buys that, and then they rent it to the business unit. So for example, if C&I needs a bobcat for a day, we have an hourly rate for that with an operator. And the bobcat goes and, makes a trench for them, maybe, let's say. And, and then when it's ready to get backfilled, it comes back, and then there's a fee for that, and they pay that. And it's all part of the estimate. And Arch Fleet is our vehicles. I think that's a different one, right? No, Arch Leasing and then Arch Transportation. That's our vehicles. So We buy the vehicles under Arch Leasing, and then we lease them to every business unit with a depreciation schedule. And that way the business unit doesn't have to cough up the 60, 70 grand to buy a vehicle. They can go basically with no money down and make monthly payments.
Who does the maintenance on the vehicles? Like we went to like so many vehicles, and it was always a problem about keeping all the vehicles on the road. There's always maintenance and some accidents.
Yeah.
So who's taking care of all of that?
So we have an asset manager, we call him. So he takes care of the forklift in the warehouse. He takes care of maintaining the maintenance on all of the vehicles. And he knows when a vehicle needs an oil change or a vehicle needs tires or brakes or whatever. He's one point of contact. So he tells the driver of the vehicle, take it over to this place and they're going to change the oil. And then that place calls and says, you also need some transmission, you need some brakes, whatever. Josh makes that decision and then he pays the bill. And then the driver gets his truck back and everything's wonderful. And all the way down to wiper blades.
Oh, wow.
But
what about cameras? What about cameras in the vehicles, and how did you get by, and how did you launch that project? Because a lot of solar companies think about putting cameras in the vehicles, but then having the conversations with the drivers is difficult. How did you guys manage that?
Yeah, that's a good question. So in conversations with our insurance company and other, fleet managers, understand that I was in the car business for a long time, so I've dealt with this stuff before. We could get a reduction in our insurance by having security in our vehicles. So we put on a monitoring system and we put cameras in the vehicles that are basically by the rear view mirror. There was a little pushback, Big Brother and all that stuff. But we now know the camera is focused on the eyes of the driver. And we now know, whether or not that driver is paying attention or not in case of an accident. And as a matter of fact, we had an accident about 4 months ago, three weeks ago, where one of our drivers got T-boned and he had looked both ways. You can see it on the camera, and he pulled out, and the driver that came and hit him was negligent. But the cops were going to give a ticket to our employee. And when we produced the video of the camera, they saw that our employee had looked both ways and had proceeded, and out of nowhere comes this pickup truck and T-bones him. And we totaled the truck got totaled as well. So and the insurance company paid out right away. They said, hey, this is not on you guys. So, and I think it also helps with the honesty of the individual. We really don't want anybody smoking weed and then driving home. It's not safe. We don't want people, popping a 6-pack on the way home. Again, it's not safe. So we don't care what they do, on their own time. But these vehicles are expensive. They're dangerous. They're loaded with tools and equipment. I mean, they're missiles, right? And so we want to make sure that everybody's safe. Safety is like a big deal. It is the number one deal for us. But yeah, Josh has got a full-time job. He's managing all of the equipment. So there's probably, I think we got 8 trailers, let's just say, 4 or 5 skid steers. This is all utility stuff. And I think the last count I had was 33 trucks and vans. So he does a great job. We haven't had a tire blowout. We haven't had a burned up engine. We haven't had if we have a cracked windshield, he gets that fixed right away. So, but it didn't come, it's like everything else. It doesn't come easy. It took us a long time to get there.
Well, since we talk about vehicles, you had a career at Harley-Davidson and Mazda. Is there some lesson that you learned in that type of industry that is useful in the solar industry, or any advice that you would give?
Well, my experience in, Harley, Ford, GM, Mazda was customer service. I learned a lot about how important customer service is. And one of the things I know I bring to the company is that vigilance on what we call the white glove treatment. Everything we do, I look at it from the customer's perspective, because that's what I've learned in my career, to understand, we think we did a nice job trenching in the yard and covering it back up. But the customer looks at that mound in their yard and they go, is somebody going to rake that up? Or am I going to rake it up? And if I'm raking up, how come I'm paying you guys? So that kind of thing, white glove treatment. And also dealing even with, in the commercial field, we end up dealing with other contractors. We might work for a GC on a new construction. And so respect is another thing that I've learned over the years. Just because we might be the best at what we do in the area doesn't mean we should start, pounding our chests and telling people which way the wind blows. We need to listen with both ears and talk out of one. And that's one of my credos. You were born with 2 ears and 1 mouth. Use it that way.
That's a good one. I'd like to speak about O&M. A lot of EPCs do a little bit of O&M. If they are mature enough, I think they split it off and have dedicated people and personnel on O&M. But it's still questionable about, is it making money? Can you survive in it? What are some of the margins that you can have on O&M? So can you speak about how your O&M department or business unit works and the benefits of it?
So today it works a lot different than it did 5 or 6 or 7 years ago. There's a funny story for those of you that are thinking about it. When Amicus announced that they were having an O&M co-op, in addition to the regular O&M, I was sitting next to our owner, Ed, who's, you should look him up on archsolar.com. He's a robust person, let's just say that. He can take me in an arm wrestle. But they announced that we're going to do this O&M and that what the fee was going to be. And Kevin Schulte raised his hand and said, I'm in. And the next person that did it was the guy next to me. And I'm holding his arm and I'm like, pull that down. You ain't got 10 grand. And so Ed saw the vision. Ed's a very visionary person, and he saw the opportunity that all of these systems all over North America at some point are going to need something. They're going to break. There's going to be a wire. There's going to be a fire. There's going to be something. And so we had one guy that was running he had worked with Ed at when Ed used to be an electrician wiring industrial buildings. And he had known this guy, and he and I met, and Ed met years ago. And we said, Eric, you could have your own little business here, just fixing stuff. And we were very, very fortunate to secure a contract with a major inverter manufacturer located, they're Spanish, but they're North American, is located in Milwaukee and Chicago. And so we established a relationship with them. And from that, Eric and another person ended up getting on a plane just about every morning, going somewhere USA to fix either a wind or a storage or a solar inverter for Inga Team. And we're still doing that today. Today we have now 2 dedicated people. That's all they do. And Eric and the rest of the team, we propagated customers. Some of the sites that are built here in Wisconsin, we know who the owners are, and so we go and meet with the owners and say, hey, we can do this O&M for you. And one of the things about O&M that's very difficult, and it's getting easier because it requires a reputation, but people don't know that we perform O&M unless we tell them, because our name says solar, it doesn't say O&M, which is why we created the business unit with the name ON. And I think we have 3 admin people. Yeah, we have 3 admin people and 6 or 7 techs. And 2 of them are women, by the way. One of them, let's see, I think she's a journeyman. I have not yet met her, Sarah, but I think she's a journeyman electrician. Another one of them is an electrical engineer. And they go out and they find some crazy shit, man. I mean, they'll open up an inverter and they'll see a beehive, and the bees got in there and, melted. And now you got melted honey all over the place. And how are you going to clean that up, right? Other things they see is rodents, right? Rodents. I mean, I've seen so many pictures of fried mice. It's ridiculous. It's not an easy business, though. I don't want to misconstrue that. It took us, I would say we probably invested several $100,000 before we got profitable. And what we also realized is that the margins can be in the 60% neighborhood because it's service. It's not, you're not quoting a job. You're not competing with somebody on how much you're going to build it for. It's service. And most of the people, these asset owners, they want one stop. They just want to make a call and say, can you get out there and fix it? Send me the bill. And so we've realized that that's really the success of O&M. Our forecast for O&M, interestingly, is that at some point we see resi solar plateauing, C&I doing somewhat the same, but in the meantime, there's all this stuff that's operating and it has to be cared for. So we're even thinking about, and one of the Amicus members does this already, we're even thinking about changing the name to the care department.
Nice. Now, you speak there mainly about CNI and utility O&M. What about residential O&M?
Yeah, so we have two people in residential. We call it SQM, Service Quality Management. And so if we're monitoring all of our sites, we now have, I think, I don't want to say it. I think there's about a little over 2,300 sites. And so on the monitoring platform, we get alerts. And so when these guys see an alert, they'll look at the customer's site and they'll go and double check the communication and the software and so on and so forth. And if they can't fix it with communication, then there is maybe a real issue. We'll contact the customer. We'll say, hey, we got to come and fix this thing. You know, we have a trip charge and we have a service charge. Do you want us to do it? And of course, they do that. We have not gotten to the point yet of, I don't know about this for sure. I think in residential, we offer a service warranty for the first year or 5, which is probably an additional $250 or maybe $500. I don't know. In CNI, we have talked about the same thing, but because we haven't had many problems on anything that we've installed, we don't really, it's not an initiative for us. On the other hand, when we get called for the other stuff that's been installed by others, we just had a huge project at a Kohl's that was just horribly installed. And then they call us and they say, hey, the guys that put this in are out of business. Can you guys come and fix this for us? And that's really the future of O&M. If there's 20 contractors in Wisconsin now, there will probably be, 6 that are going to be around in 10 years, maybe. And we'll be able to fix all of that stuff.
How do you charge, like, pricing wise for CNI? Is it like,
So here in our market, yeah, good question. In our market here, we charge $125 for what's called reactive maintenance. And preventative maintenance, I'm going to tell you this, I'm not 100% exactly sure about this, but I heard we charge around 110 on preventative maintenance. And that's across the board, no matter what the business unit is.
and do you have some surcharges?
Yeah, good question. So if we just had this happen I think it was a week ago. We had a commercial job that was, I want to say it was 30 maybe stories high that we built with a general contractor, and it was a high profile building down in downtown Milwaukee. And they called and trying to think what happened, why the panels broke. 3 panels got damaged, and they called at 7:00 in the morning and they said, we want this fixed today. And so in that case, our 125 an hour becomes a $250 trip charge and then $125 an hour. And one of the things I would encourage you to do if you're going to do when you're doing O&M is try to capture every minute, because if it's not just the truck roll, it's the loading of the truck. It's the taking the phone call, it's creating the job ticket, and then at the end, it's unloading the truck and doing the admin and producing the invoice. So there's another hour and a half there of labor that needs to be captured at 125 an hour. And that's one of my jobs. So I instigate education, right? I'm trying to get people to understand that a truck roll is a truck roll, but there's stuff on the other side of it. So you can't, the myopia that we tend to have on our billing systems is something that all of you can probably understand, because, you own your businesses and you've paid those bills. Surcharge is something that we're not trying to gouge anybody, but what we're doing is we're postponing the business that we had on the schedule for the last 2 weeks. And so now we have to make 4 phone calls and say, hey, I'm sorry, I can't come today. Something came up. I'll have to come tomorrow. And so there's a value to that I believe that we're eligible to collect for.
Yeah, it's an opportunity cost. It's a real cost. Mike, I'd like to end the podcast, as I know you met Elon Musk in person a while ago. What would you say to Elon Musk if you would meet him again today?
Yeah, so in May of 2009, I got a call from an old friend of mine at Harley, and he said, hey, Tesla needs a North American sales manager. Would you be interested? And I was like, hell yeah. I mean, I love electric cars, and I've been around cars my whole life. So this guy gets a hold of me, and we were making arrangements to go out to LA to meet. And there was a unveiling of the S model in May of 2009, and it was held at the Hawthorne Rocket Factory, SpaceX. And I didn't know SpaceX even existed back then. And so I go into this building and I got a VIP pass, so they're letting me run around anywhere I want to go. And I went in the backstage and I got to see all the rocket stuff, man. It was crazy. And then the music started playing and they had everybody with hors d'oeuvres and drinks and stuff. And now we're going to unveil the S model. So they unveil the S model. And then Elon's walking around. First, he gives his little talk, he gives a little talk. And then he's wandering around. And this gal, I think her name was Denise, says, "Hey, Mike, would you like to meet Elon?" And I said, "Yes, please." So I got to meet him and I'm like, "Hi, my name's Mike." At that time, I was wearing a General Motors Indicia on a dark shirt that was basically black on black embossment. And I said, I'm probably the only person from this place that you're going to meet tonight. And he said, "That's very interesting." And I said, "I'm really excited about what you're doing. I can't wait for the future. Someday there will be a semi." And his response was, "Who told you about that?" So he already back in 09 his product mind is amazing, right? What I would say to him today is, or what he would have said to me today that he said then would be the same thing. Photovoltaic and electric vehicles equals sustainable transportation. I don't think anything's changed. I just watched their all-in meeting from 5 days ago, where he had the entire staff, and it was just him talking transparently, talking about all the products that they're working on and what they're going to be doing. And they showed the semi factory to the public for the first time. That's a real thing. A lot of people are like, "Yeah, those electric cars, the batteries are going to die. They're going to start on fire, blah, 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 blah." We have 5, I think 6 Teslas at the company between, and these are privately owned. These are not company cars. The guys just buy them. And we have 4 chargers, I think. And, yeah, so I'm a musketeer, through and through. Say what you want about his personal life. Everybody's got one. I don't know anybody that's got more kids than this guy, but his brain making rockets and making electric cars and making self-driving, autonomous, artificial intelligence. My goodness, we're blessed to have, somebody the likes of Edison on our team in America.
And on those wise words, Mike, I want to thank you very much for the podcast. Hopefully we all learned something more. So thank you for sharing. If you'd like to do the same or do better, go to sunvoy.com/blog and get actionable behind-the-scenes lessons on running and growing your solar business.